before you get the epidural, for like an hour, you have to be getting IV fluids. And this is probably one of the biggest deters of you getting an epidural. It's actually a myth. As he was speaking and telling me the risks, I was just like, I don't care, man. Why are we wasting time?
Would you be my done? I still got a lot of shit to learn.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be discussing the 5 pros and cons to getting an epidural. So I am a first-time mama. I've only birthed one time, but the one time that I did it with an epidural, and I was so happy with my decision that even if given another chance to birth naturally, I don't think I would do it, just because I think the pros so outweigh the cons. Now let's dive right into it. So by any means, I am not an expert or anything. This is just my personal experience with birthing with an epidural, but I did labor for a big chunk of time without one. And I can tell you, one of my regrets was not getting it sooner. So if you're here because you're either about to go into labor and you want to make that decision, that call for yourself from other people that might have experienced it, here's my experience. So we're gonna start with the cons. The first con is that once you get the epidural, you can't walk. Now, that's for safety reasons, because you can't feel your legs and you might be more numb than you even anticipate. So when you walk, you might fall, and it just poses more risk to you and the baby. So that's the reason that they don't let you walk around. So that can also contribute to you not being able to sway and birth through the contractions as much. So if that was something that you were really looking forward to when things started getting like to the nitty-gritty, you're not going to be able to walk or move around other than just be on the bed. Number 2 con in getting the epidural is that it feels weird. Like you don't feel your legs, but like you're touching them and they just feel like some meat sacks. Like they feel heavy. You know that you have legs. There's a sensation there. I had more feeling in one side versus the other, and they say it's because you were probably laying on that side more, so then more of the medicine was able to like drain into that leg, and that's why it was more numb. So like the nurse had me like switching positions every so often, but even then, like when I was rotating, I still couldn't feel like one side more. And that was really weird, because like I had the sensation of like the leg, but like I couldn't lift it. I couldn't move it. I could barely move my toes. Like it was just a useless leg. And then the other one, I was able to kind of like lift. It's like a feeling of when your leg falls asleep, like you're sitting on it or something, and then you like lift it and it's like, it's so weak. It feels so, it kind of like hurts like pins and needles, like to move it. It kind of felt like that, minus the pins and needles being worse than when your leg falls asleep. It's not that bad. And you know, it was just weird. So yeah, that might not be something you like. Next is the risks in getting the epidural. Now there's risks with everything. So they go through this before you get, like right before you get it, which I don't understand, because you're already nervous about getting this thing, and then they're gonna go through all the scary things that can possibly happen to you, and you have to just accept it. For me, the pain was so bad that as he was speaking and telling me the risks, I was just like, I don't care, man. Why are we wasting time? As the anesthesiologist was telling me all the risks, I frankly could give a F less, because I was just so much in pain that anything was worth it to me to just get out of that pain. It was just absolute hell. I don't recommend it. It's not fun. But like, you know, if you want to try to go with it all natural, that's on you, baby. I am not the one. Risks associated with getting the epidural consist of the next couple ones, but not all of the list, obviously. It's a risk of a spinal leak. Like there can be a spinal leak from like brain, I guess, through the thing, and like you get this massive headache that won't go away. Now the other risks involved could be, you know, a drop in blood pressure, which is why I didn't know this before going in, but before you get the epidural, for like an hour, you have to be getting IV fluids, and that's because of the risk in drop in blood pressure. But for my situation, I was getting fluid like from the second I got there. So by the time I wanted the epidural, I was able to get it right away and not have to wait that hour. So keep that in mind for when you're really struggling with the pains of labor, that if you're going to be getting the epidural, make that decision sooner than later, because the longer you wait, the chances are that they're gonna have to administer that fluid and you're gonna have to sit in even more progressing pain for an hour leading up to when you're eligible to get that epidural. And then there's obviously all sorts of other scary risks like paralysis and lots of feeling in the legs and like a spine pain and back pain for like ever and all these things. You hear about all these horror stories, but like I have never met anybody that has had one of these horror stories other than the brain leak, which was like, not brain leak, oh my God, spinal fluid leak, which was just like a really bad headache. And then she had to go back to the hospital to like get fluids or something, I don't know. But other than that, like I've never heard of like a negative outcome from an epidural. So like me personally, I was willing to take that risk. So number 3 in the cons list that may not apply to you depending on your hospital's policies is that you can't birth in multiple or different positions that have researched about being more beneficial birthing positions, because you're very limited in how you can move. So like you were able to move to your side where like the peanut ball was like in between your legs, you know, and then the other side for that. And then when it's time to birth, like they want you on your back, you know, because you can't feel your legs. So you can't be on your hands and knees or on all fours or in a crouched position. Like you're just not gonna be able to do all that because you're not gonna have that mobilization. And the hospital doesn't wanna get sued from you slipping and falling on your stomach and then something bad happening. So they're not gonna take that risk and they're not gonna let you get into all these different positions that you heard were so wonderful for birth. For me, I just wanted to be on my back. It was highly beneficial for me to just be there so that I can grab my legs and really like hunker my stomach down and kind of like do that like push down, you know, motion. So like I wouldn't want to labor in another position, but if that was something that you wanted to try, getting an epidural would disqualify you from that. Next on the list, and you may have heard this, and this is probably one of the biggest deters of you getting an epidural, it's actually a myth. It might slow down the time in which you actually labor. You might take longer to push. Now, I've heard from so many people, OBGYNs and nurses from the hospital staff, saying that they've seen it go both ways, that it's kind of a myth. It's not really you get the epidural and it's gonna slow down labor kind of thing. You know, I was talking to a nurse that was in the line of business for over 30 years, and she says that she's seen it go more the other way, if anything, that women get relaxed so much that they allow their body to just like open up, and it speeds up the time in which you're in labor. So I know that I'm putting this on the cons list only because it's so common for people to think about in association to getting an epidural. But talk to your doctor, talk to your OB. There was an OB that told me that, yeah, it could do that. And then 2 other OBs that told me that's false, that it doesn't do that, that it can, you know, that's just something that was naturally going to happen with or without you getting the epidural, is the length of time that you're going to be in labor, because every body is different. But it has very little to do with the correlation of the epidural itself. So if that was one of your reasons for not getting it, scratch that thought, girl, because I don't think it's real. So now moving on to the pros list. Now, the first pro on my list is that you feel little to no pain. Now, this rang very true for me. It was like the second I got my epidural, I was just like, oh, thank God, where was this at? Like, I should have done this hours ago. It was like a safe haven for me. It was just so nice to finally feel that relief after hours and hours of excruciating pain. So I was just so happy. Little to no pain while you're laboring. You can't feel a contraction coming. At least I couldn't. I couldn't feel anything coming. I could see on the chart that I was having contractions, but I couldn't really feel them. And the only thing I could feel was like the pressure of the baby going down. Like you feel pressure right in that zone, you know? And it feels like something's gonna like bust out, because hello, it is. But that's kind of supposed to happen, and you would be feeling that whether you had the epidural or not. So you might as well be comfortable, don't you think? So next, number 2 on the list, and it could possibly be my favorite, is that you don't feel the ring of fire. Oh my gosh, this was a hugie for me because I was so worried about that like stretch and burning sensation when you're supposed to continue to push, but as you push it hurts even more, so it's like contradicting what your body wants to do. And for me, it was, I just didn't feel it. I would push, but I did not feel the ring of fire. It was not painful at all. I was actually surprised in how easy it was to push, okay? And like the pain was not there. If I was gonna put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say the pain of pushing was probably at like a 1. Like a 1. If that's something you're like terrified about, and I've heard so many women that have had my experience too with their epidural, they didn't feel the ring of fire, that like, it's just like, it's worth it. Like to me, it was worth it, but that's why I'm biased. So take this with a grain of salt. So number 3 on the list, and this is also a hugie, is that you don't feel the tearing. Now, chances are if you're a first time mama, you're gonna tear, okay? It's just natural. You might tear up, you might tear sideways, you might tear down, but you're gonna tear, most likely. And you don't feel it when it's happening. I didn't feel when I tore. I also didn't feel when she was putting on the stitches, which was something else that I was like absolutely petrified about. Now, obviously I was entertained. They put your baby on your chest for a reason. They want you distracted up here so that you're not aware of what's going on down there. But like, even with that said, I felt like the tugging, like movement of where they were at, you know, delicately sewing things back together. But I didn't feel any pain. So it was awesome. Moving on. So number 4 on the list. This is a big one because there's a lot of mamas that refrain from getting pain relief because they're so worried about getting the epidural that they're just like, just in absolute misery. And I feel so bad for them. Stupid phone notification. Okay. You shouldn't be afraid of it. I didn't really feel the pain of it going in, and if you watched my birth story, I go into more detail about what the sensation was of it going in. You feel the tiniest pinch, like that, okay? A pinch of your nails together, like do that. You feel that on your back, lower back spine, when they're putting on the numbing injection. After that, you don't feel hardly anything else. You don't feel it, okay? And the thing is that number 4 on the pros list is that it allows your body to rest. You could have been in labor for, some women are in labor for like 10, 12, 40 hours, 50, whatever, hours of just constant pain of contraction after contraction with very minimal downtime in between those contractions to like regroup and like get your strength back. That, cat, you were so rude. If you saw that, that was like my cat's fluffy tail walking by. So rude. Don't feel so scared to not get it that you deprive yourself of the rest that your body needs to continue laboring, you know. And as soon as you get that epidural, your body can rest and relax. I took a nap, okay? So many women out there take naps, okay, during labor. And the only way you're allowed or actually able to do that is because the epidural allows enough time and enough, you know, relaxation of your body to just do what it needs to do to get the ball rolling, you know? So that's the biggest and 4th, or not the biggest, but it's a biggie on the list because sometimes it's what you need and you might have to succumb to it so that you can actually birth and continue labor the way that you wanted to. So anyway, moving on. So number 5 and last on my list is, and it's also made it into a cons list, but you'll see why. It can speed up the time of labor. It can speed things along because you allowed your body to rest. So like I said, I talked to 3 OBs while I was in the hospital. Remember, I was in the hospital for 3 days before I actually gave birth, and then I was in there for another 2 days. That's besides the point. For those 3 days, I talked to 3 different OBs and then multiple nurses. And I asked all of them this because it was my biggest fear. Was the epidural? What about it? Like things like this. Like what have you seen this go wrong? Like all these things. And what they would tell me is that, you know, sometimes I've seen women get the epidural and then boom, they go from a 5 to a 10 and they open up and they give birth like within an hour, because it just allowed their body to rest so much that they were able to progress. Now that was the situation for me too. I took a long time to get to that 5 centimeter mark and it was excruciating. And then finally when I got the epidural, it was like within 2 to 3 hours that I was pushing, because I was able to chill. I got a nap and my body did its thing. It did what it needed to do. So there you guys have it. 5 pros and cons to getting the epidural. Now, no matter what you guys end up doing, the right choice that you come to has to be all of yours, and nobody can sway you with that decision. But I really hope you guys have a wonderful birth experience. Don't forget, it's gonna be the most memorable moment of your life probably. So try to be present and try to enjoy it. It's not as bad as they all make it sound. It's a secret. All women want this badass certificate. So they act and they say that it was really bad and it was horrible, because it is, but also because they want that badass certificate. And at the end of the day, labor sucks. But there's a reason why bitches be doing it all the time, again and again, and they have 3-4 kids. If it was really that bad, then why would you get pregnant again? So don't forget that. And don't forget that your body knows how to labor. Your body knows what to do. So no matter what, you're gonna get through it. So that about sums it up, guys. If you want to see more motherhood related content and pregnancy content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and leave a like so that I know that this was helpful to somebody out there. And definitely comment down below and when your due date is, and if you're going to be getting the epidural, why or why not. So I look forward to hearing from you guys in the chats. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.
Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free. Oh, my sweet baby.